Thank you, Piyush for that exciting session. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Manesh Mahatme, and I lead delivery experience for Amazon India. I'm so excited to be here. Smbhav is such a great meeting of minds on how MSMEs can power this country's growth. And in keeping with that larger theme, I'm honored to host this very important discussion on the digital advantage, scaling MSMEs in the next decade. And joining me is a distinguished panel of speakers. Our first two panelists are leading voices in the MSME landscape and have been very instrumental in highlighting how digital can be an ally for MSMEs. Extremely grateful for their partnership with Amazon's public outreach teams. First, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Vinod Kumar, President of the India SME Forum. He advises various governments and international institutions like UNCTAD, UNISAR for strategizing and dealing with current issues and future challenges of sustainable livelihoods and economic empowerment.
You've got a file there.
Joining Mr. Kumar is Mrs. Khyati Naravne, CEO of the Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She takes charge of overall growth and evolution for the chamber and has more than 2 decades of expertise in areas including brand establishment, cultivating relationships, and strategic formulation. Our next two panelists bring in a unique vantage point of partnering MSMEs on their growth journey. We have Mr. Atul Mehta, the Chief Operating Officer of ShipRocket, India's first automated shipping software that aims to reduce e-commerce shipping to its bare bones. He has over 16 years of experience across P&L management, category management, product and sales. He also happens to be a dear friend and an ex-Amazonian. Finally, we have Mr. Gurmukh Sidhu, the Chief Operating Officer of Value First. He's been associated with the company for nearly 20 years, which partners the growth of MSMEs in India. Welcome all, and thank you for joining on this exciting session. Let me start with you, Vinodji. The MSME sector contributes to about 30% of India's GDP and over 45% of India's exports, right? While creating employment for about 11 crore people, which I think in terms of volume stands just next to agriculture. In fact, the growth of MSMEs is so critical for self-reliant growth of the Indian economy. Vinodji, can you share your perspective on which specific sectors, where MSMEs are making progress? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Manish. First of all, a warm welcome to all of you for being here this afternoon, and thanks to Amazon for putting this entire thing together. It's good to actually understand and learn from all of you, that have been talking the whole day, and obviously everybody else here. Well, some of you might be aware, or maybe all of you are aware, the fact that micro, small, and medium enterprises, the definition was changed some time back. So what happened is, with that definition, we no longer have a company which can be a small-scale industry, but we can have one self-employed person also as a micro, small, medium enterprise entrepreneur. Now, with that, and then the other side of it, where we're talking about a company with an Indian turnover of up to 250 crores. An Indian turnover of up to 250 crores is considered to be a micro, small, or medium in that order. So you have small is up to 50, micro is up to 5 crores. But the best thing about this is you have exports, which is completely out of this. So even if you have a turnover of 1,000 crores, in exports, you're still a micro, small, or medium enterprise. So that's the first thing. Now, to set the record straight, now going forward, we today talk about how many MSMEs does India have. And there's this constant discussion about how many people, where are they, and what are they doing. So if you factually look at the GST data, you're talking about 1 crore, crore and a half. Whereas When you look at the entire sector, I'd still say 97% of it's still unorganized, which essentially brings us to the fact that you have less than 2 crores which are registered with the government on the Udyam registration, which is the platform where the government asks for people to register themselves and avail all the benefits. But on the other hand, when we talk about benefits and everything else, there's a huge number, and that number is almost greater than 10 crores, which is still not registered, which is still operating. Now, where are these guys? And what are they doing? We'll come to that. But let's look at the 2 crores first that are there, which are registered with the government and what they are doing. So which are the sectors these guys are in? And what are they doing? How have they fared in the last few years? Automotive, one of the leading sectors in India. High technology use. They use the latest processes, equipment, technology, because we have a lot of international companies which have joined up with local SMEs. So what you found is small companies that used to be SSIs 15, 20 years back, today are very, very large. So have turnovers exceeding 5,000, 6,000 crores each. So this sector has seen a huge growth, I'd say. Now, simultaneously, when we look at pharma, again, a very, very important sector, does very good in exports and all of that. Third, when we look at agro and food, again, a very, very important sector. You've had hundreds of brands being started every day of people that were basically into the B2B segment but are now becoming D2C brands. So a lot of that is happening. And then you have sectors like textiles, where we may not be at the forefront in the entire world, but where we are still pushing because of various constraints, and the government is also working on all of those, trying to push it forward. The one sector which needed a lot of, I'd say, support, which has not happened in the last 25, 30, 40 years, is village, agro, handicrafts, SHGs, that sector, which is rural in nature, where you have people working by hand, there's no implements, there's hard, age-old techniques, mechanisms that they use to produce. And that, by far, is the biggest sector that still is looking at moving forward. But with that, I'd like to share some numbers. I was given some numbers by my research team. And these numbers may be something, maybe some of you are hearing those numbers for the first time. The first number is that 78% of all manufacturing in India is done by micro, small, medium enterprises. So whenever these GDP numbers come up, I always get confused. Because I say, where are these numbers coming from, and do we actually have the data? And if people have brought that data out, do they actually know how? 63% of all services are micro, small, medium enterprises. So these are two major sectors. The third, in the morning, I think there was discussion on retail and how that industry is moving forward. 87% of all retail in India is micro, small, medium enterprises. Even the fact that you have Amazons, Flipkarts, and everybody else, all the modern retail, multinationals, everybody. But 87% of Indian retail is still micro, small, medium enterprises. These are the guys that are running this. And one very big number that most of us keep on talking about, but we are not very sure as to what it is, and there are various figures that are quoted. 64% of all Indian export is done by micro, small, and medium enterprises, and this the government also does not know. They don't know a lot of things, but this is one of them. So I hope I've answered some of your points in your question.
And thank you for that really insightful perspective. Khyatiji, in your perspective, what are some of the challenges that SMEs face while exporting? And as Vinodji said, export is a large part of how MSMEs view their business, and how can the government help overcome some of these challenges?
So thank you so much for this question, and I think before even I start to answer this, I would like to thank Amazon for inviting me And I would especially like to mention here that the Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry had a 1.5-year MOU with the Amazon, where we reached out to a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities and got the enterprises over there onboarded. So I would like to first thank you and also acknowledge the public policy team and the marketing team for supporting us. So thank you so much for that.
Very grateful.
And coming back to your question, it's a known fact that we have an ambitious project to reach $2 trillion economy for exports, and this is only possible if there's much more collaboration between the central government and the state government. And when we talk about bringing in or enhancing the exports, I think a lot of enterprises needs to come out from tier 2, tier 3, district level, the self-help group, the artisans, the clusters that we are talking about. So this is the key, and I think to look at India as a global brand or a trusted partner, I would like to put my answer in 3 different verticals. One could be awareness. The state and the central government needs to come out with many more awareness programs, but that's one. That is something also the chambers and the associations we do. But when we talk about quality, when we talk about the warranty, when we talk about the handling of the shipment, I think these are the areas that the SME needs an hand-holding. Besides this, I think the second vertical, which is very, very important, is the infrastructure readiness. Now, when we talk about enterprises coming from the tier 2, tier 3 or the district level, there's a lot of connectivity that's the need of the hour. Look at the example of Telangana, and we are a landlocked state, and in spite of that, we are the pharma capital of India and the IT hub. So what happens is, when we're talking about being a pharma capital, the connectivity, the road, the railway, the warehouses, the inland container depot, the air cargo connectivity, all that really matters. And this is one of the factors which leads to cost of doing business. So this is a very, very important area which we cannot miss out if we need to enhance the exports, especially from this district level. And the third vertical is technology. Now, we've all heard the buzzword of digitization and digitalization and digital transformation. So everyone knows we're talking about the digital transformation. Now, we've all spoken about digitization and digitalization, but I think now is the time for the SMEs to digitally transform themselves so that they can increase the capacity and cater to a much larger audience or the consumer market that we talk about. Besides this, I think the government through ODOP or ECGC schemes and few other schemes, they have been doing relatively good job, but then in terms of bringing out, the biggest challenge that I see is the hand-holding that an MSME needs at every level, be it quality control, be it the infrastructure readiness for cost of doing business, or be it the technological transformation.
No, thank you so much for that perspective. And you know, there are so many of these very inspiring stories. I mean, just one example is this, seller called Indocraft, who's actually, which create this very handmade Indian, very traditional items, and they are selling from India all over the world. And these are, so inspiring, but just speaks to how much more is possible, right? And this is a very good segue based on what you said about how can we handle specifically on infrastructure and technology. And I'm going to come to you, Atul, because this comes right up your street. We heard from many speakers in the earlier sessions, right, that digitization is key to transformation, right? And just to make this real, I mean, what would be the key opportunities that get unlocked for MSMEs, through digitization?
Sure. So thanks, Manish, for that, and thanks, Amazon, for having me here. I think the first and the foremost, and maybe I'm repeating, but I'll still say it, I think digitization democratizes access and reach. Right? Today, a seller sitting in a remote corner of the country can have access to customers across the country. He can compete with the biggest of brands in a shelf space, which digitization has enabled him to do, right, in the digital world. he can compete with the biggest of brands on advertising or on social to be able to get their message across. So I think democratizing access and reach is not limited by where he or she is sitting physically and can reach out to a much, much wider base. The second one I think is on how digitization has, say, improved efficiency, ease of doing business. We talk of it in the context of government, but I think there's a lot of work which has happened outside. Kathy talked about operations and logistics being a challenge. Compare the world 5 years, compare the country 5 years back and today. You have so many enablers making it so much seamless for an SMB merchant to ship nationally. Talk about payments. 5-6 years back, for somebody starting their business, just the thought of how am I going to collect payments was so overwhelming. Talk about communication. You have now communication solutions to enable SMBs to be able to reach out to their merchants, remarket, retarget them. Inventory management for somebody who's doing offline business. So all these tools, I call this the enabler ecosystem, which has developed over the years, backed by digitization, as I think really helped the SMBs in scaling. And I think the third one is just on increasing the surface area of SMBs and SMEs. Today, we have 30 to 40,000 shopping carts in the country outside the marketplaces. US has 4 million. That's 100x. Right? The journey is going to happen because today it's easy for me to get a GST certificate. It's easy for me to set shop. It's easy for me to list my products on marketplaces and start selling. And if I want to start selling directly, it's become easy for me. So I think all this, if you look at it, has been enabled by solutions, digital solutions. Yes, the pace, a lot of these solutions started off catering to enterprises, but I think we've seen the industry gravitating towards helping the MSMEs and building for them, keeping them at the heart of what they are building.
No, thanks for this very, very insightful perspective on challenges. And coming to challenges, Gurmukh, you've been part of a very successful digital business and nearly 20 years now, and based on your own journey, can you talk to us about how MSMEs can navigate some of the challenges they face in adopting digitization, right? And how they can leverage technology and digital tools to understand and embrace digital and adapt to consumer needs?
Yeah, I think the major challenges which we have seen MSMEs adopting this is that they obviously have limited resources. Let it be people or funds available to them. Obviously, they have limited resources to actually do this digital transformation that we are talking about. I think the second is that lack of skills that they have or awareness about the possibilities which are there. It's happening now. It's starting to happen, but I think where we are is just a starting tipping point, as you also rightly mentioned. So I think that's another thing, that the individuals there or even the business owners are really not that tech savvy or digital savvy as to what all can be digitized and how. So I think that's another bit which is really crippling it. Second is, the third bit is, I think, resistance to change. The way they have been doing business in a certain manner, I think that's one area which they don't want to really change. That's a mindset thing which is there with the owner or with the individuals working around. So I think that is there, the way the processes are running or the entire thing is running. So I think that continues in the same manner. And I think even if you cross few of these hurdles, then the latest thing, I think everyone in the room would have seen Jamtada, the Netflix series. The cyber security and the cyber attacks, that becomes a big problem as to how you secure the consumer and business data. So I think all of this is just too much of hurdles which are there in their minds as of now. And then lastly, I think the infrastructure. There are regions, there are pockets where technology and all these facilities or tech infrastructure, internet is not really accessible, which actually impedes the possibility of doing all this. So I think that really creates a bit of a roadblock for it to flourish at a much faster pace. And I think the ways to navigate what we have seen is that I think they should look at starting small, not really trying to really do a landscape kind of change at one go, but pick up maybe one or two key areas which they think can really create an impact. Maybe a customer engagement that they want to start with, or inventory management that they want to start with, and really start small and take baby steps around it. The other bit is getting the skills going, training their employees and the teams about all the digital technologies which are available. And today, I think there are workshops which can be done online. There are a lot of tools available. I think if that happens, I think the entire workforce gets enabled to enable this. And the other bit is, I think, collaboration and networking, which can be another area where you be part of industry forums or part of associations and network with people who actually have already handled these challenges. They've already crossed those hurdles, and they've actually way ahead in the value chain. So I think that learning can happen from the peers who've actually done that already. And the other bit also is that it can be a gradual adoption. Again, the same thing. It'll ensure that you start small, some bit of changes, don't do a complete process overhaul, do one change in one area, implement it, and that will also take care of the resistance to change which is there. It's not that at one go you want to really change everything, but go one by one and do that. And I think the other two important things is with the cloud infrastructure available today, I think you don't need to really invest big time into hardware straight away. You can use for your software, data storage, backups. You can straight away use straight away the cloud technologies and actually not start big investments. And I think all of this then gets taken care of quite a bit.
No, so thank you for that, and this resonates so much. I mean, at Amazon, we've had to partner with sellers and along their journey, whether it's about imaging, whether it's about support, and finding an ecosystem of partners to help them, traverse this journey and digitize them. Khyati ji, one very important stakeholder is the government, right? And it has a big role in bringing together digitization and MSME growth. Can you talk about some of the policy measures that the government has undertaken already to enable MSMEs to adopt digitization?
Sure. So it's a known fact that MSMEs contribute to up to 33% of the GDP, and government stakeholders are the key enabler for that. And I think every government, whether it's state or central government, has been very, very focused on how do they empower the MSMEs. And MSMEs by themselves are very, very agile, and we have seen whether recession or during the recent pandemic, we have seen them come out very, very strong, And digital transformation again is going to play a major role in that. In terms of some of the policies, I would like to highlight a few policies that the state government of Telangana has undertaken, which is one of the success story and much spoken about. They have initiated in 2014, which is called TS iPass. And this is totally digitized policy where a unit, if he wants to set up his unit in Telangana, all he has to do is apply online. And the best part about it is, if you don't get a response in a day, 1,000 rupees is levied upon the officer who's not given the approvals. And the second best thing is within 24 hours, if it is not approved, if it is not responded, it is deemed to be approved. So come on, tell me which government has come out with such proactive policy. So that's a much spoken about policy. Also considering the fact that Telangana is a IT hub of India, and we have all the big players in the IT with the second home in Hyderabad, and also of course Amazon has its entire setup, I think, in Telangana. Then besides that, we have also seen a lot of innovations that has come out from Telangana in terms of the government themselves acting like a private player and setting up establishments such as T-Works, T-Hub, V-Hub. Now these are all the agencies that work towards empowering innovation and technology. So this is a very, very forward-looking approach. There's also an open data policy where MSMEs can again leverage those data-driven analytics for their own growth. and understanding the consumer needs and demand. Besides that, I think definitely the central government has come out with the Digital India, which also has helped the MSCs to further enhance their capacity. I think one area which we need to really probably jointly request the government is to also, under the capacity building program of the Ministry of MSME, reach out to those district level, because we've seen the metro cities and they really don't need those kind of support as in we see in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. And that's where I think government now needs to focus more on. Of course, there is one district, one product policy which is already there, but then how much of it is successful is really not known at this stage. And that's where I think the government now needs to focus, and that's going to be more on the skilling or the capacity building for the smaller enterprises.
No, thank you for sharing all of these initiatives and support structures for MSMEs. And but Vinodji, it's a long journey, right? It's a long-term project, and it should also enhance the sustainability for all stakeholders, and that's super critical, right? And so, what strategies can MSMEs adopt, right, to ensure sustainability in their digitization journey?
See, you remarked about long term. Let me tell you 2-3 things. I work with Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and a couple of other countries, and they are all behind us as far as fintech is concerned. Every one of them is wanting to figure out what the hell do we do in UPI? How can you not use a MasterCard or a Visa or somebody else? And how can you get a transaction done in a matter of 4 or 5 seconds? Now, that is the first thing which our MSMEs have, why they have sort of gone to this entire new world of let me accept money online. A lot of them are still taking it in their savings accounts, but that is besides the point. The point here is you've got to a point when you said, I am going digital, I'm going to accept money. Second point of this is, when you look at sustainability, I'd like to ask this audience, if you guys are okay, if you're not too sleepy, can I ask you a question? Excellent. So a show of hands for anybody who has a family member who is 25 or less. Not many. So a lot of you are young. Thank you. So essentially, how many of those that are 25 or younger do they go to a shop these days?
Absolutely.
Anybody? No? Yeah? Most of them are on their mobiles. The other day I told my son, I want to buy a big television. I have a big wall, and I hate the mural that is on it. Can I replace it? He said, yeah, we'll figure out. Give me time till the evening. I'll tell you where to buy from. By the time I came home at 5, we had a big, really big television in the room. So I was like, you didn't even wait for me you didn't even ask me. And he's like, no, but it was available. I found the best price, I found the best specs, and I got it, I ordered it. Now, and he's been like that, my both daughters are like that, and I see a lot of young people are like that. Now, who else but the young people are customers for the next generation? Which essentially means if any of us are wanting to future-proof our businesses, we do not have a choice but to go digital. Because that is where your next generation customer is. The customer is no longer, at a place where you're hoping he'll walk into your shop and then you will show him all the great things that you have. It's the other way around. The customer wants you to reach out to him or her, show them what you have so that they can make a conscious decision. Okay, I will consider this ABC, and then if I feel like I may go and buy at the shop. But, I've heard, Gurmukh was talking about this, resistance. I've heard so much of resistance in the last 10 years, but I shouldn't say thank you to whosoever brought COVID in, but I had loads and loads of SMEs rushing to us and saying, what do we do? You've been talking about digital for so long, but now we are stranded, we don't know what to do. So what did we do? We said digital, A, B, C, D of digital, this is the 5 things that you need to do. And you won't believe, we had, I think, 1,700 women out of the 7,000 that are part of our membership, all of them going online, and almost 80% of them shut down their shops because they had higher yield from online. And I keep on telling them, Arey Baba, why are you shutting the shop? Keep it, na. She says, no, I can't afford the rent anymore. Why should I do it when I'm making more money? It's a drain on my resource. I don't say this so everybody should shut down your shops. Please don't. But I'm just telling you what happened. And then we had a lot of businesses which completely went online. Completely went online. And to the extent that all the people, we have 98,780 odd members today, as on date, 100% of them are online. If a member applies for a new membership, if anybody wants to apply as a member, we say, do you qualify in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters? And do you have a digital strategy in mind for the near future? If you don't, we'll say you are a subscriber and we add you to the list of another 12.5 lakh people that we have. Because we know it will take time for us to take you to the next level. And if we can't help you, you can't help yourself also. So if you don't go digital, and this, I'm really, really thankful to the government. We talk about the entire infrastructure for digital. How can your son, daughter, or anybody today use the mobile and get into, stream a whole film in a matter of download a film in a matter of 7, 8, 10 minutes? It's because you have this infrastructure which is available. We should thank the government for that. A. B, all the schemes that they have. I don't know how many of you remember, 10 years back, we used to go to the local district office and tell them, can you give me a special certificate saying I am a small-scale industry? It's completely online. You used to spend 40, 50, 60,000 rupees. It's completely online. There's no registration in municipalities for your offices. You can do it online. There are a million things which have gone online, and this government is bent on clearly reaching out its services, whatever they do, to people in every part of the country. And why I said so earlier, you see, look at the Prime Minister, what he's doing now. We've had, the most backward of the people. We talked about the guys that are handicraft artisans and village enterprises and all of that. We've had more than 6 schemes launched by the government. The first of them was the Mudra. Everybody was saying, who is getting this money? Nobody knows. But I know, I can tell you. I work with self-help groups across India, and I can tell you there are millions of them that have got funded. So from a group where they don't know what to do with the money, they play with the money like a kitty. This month, 2,000 less, third, it happens in Telangana, it happens in Andhra Pradesh, majority of the women. But what happens now? This woman gets the money, so she says, I'm not going to be part of this kitty anymore. I am going to set up a stall on the highway and I'm going to sell something. She got the money for it. Now, all of this has happened at the rural level. I've had, on the other side, if you look at this, what has happened with FPOs. For 50 years, we had this huge thing on our heads. Amul is a great success. But nobody built on it. We have one Amul, and that's it. But do you know, there are more than 8,000 FPOs across the country that are trying to get wherever they want to. But nobody has helped them all these years. But this Prime Minister decided that I'm going to go down to that audience. And I feel the next 10 years, it's not just about fintech. You will see India at the forefront of everything in the world, looking at his vision and what he's wanting to establish. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And Gurmukh, as Vinodji said, it's a journey, and one thing super critical is we have to take everyone along on that journey, right? And so, what are some of the key actions that MSMEs and other stakeholders can take to encourage more participation from marginalized communities and get them to the formal economy?
I think it's really fostering inclusivity is very important. I think reducing inequality, I think that will be key going forward to make this mainstream. And I think I'll give you an example. We recently onboarded an MSME, and I think I can name it. It's called Earth Fintech. and they actually give loans to women entrepreneurs. And 50,000 rupees loan is given without much credit checks and all of it. The similar example to what you were saying. So 50,000 rupees given to a woman entrepreneur after doing the due diligence and checks. And then obviously they're doing different businesses and they get onboarded to the platform, bringing in financial discipline and all of it because it's happening through this tech platform. And I think all these artisans and rural retailers and even farmers actually having this opportunity to utilize these funds and become mainstream and be able to sell anywhere. I think that's going to be the key which is going to drive this going forward. So I'm sure there are many more organizations like Earth which are actually there who are doing this kind of a work, but we worked very closely for last few months with them and really realized as to what they were bringing on the table. So I think that's really bringing the entire thing together.
Awesome, thanks. Atul, I'm going to come to you now for a very important part of the MSME journey, right? As India continues to be the world's fastest growing major economy, one of the key drivers of growth is exports, right? And the logistics sector has a key role to play. And can you speak to some of the opportunities that the logistics sector has opened up? And also another interesting part I'd like you to share is, what would be your top 3 things you'd want to tell entrepreneurs and business owners in the audience who aspire to tap into the digital opportunity?
Sure. So I think on cross-border and logistics, I think the fundamental shift which has happened with the advancement in logistics infrastructure is the reduction of barrier to entry, right? Like drop shipping, where I don't need to actually look for a warehouse in US and ship my products, and I can ship from my warehouse in India is a reality today. You have players who are shipping from India to US in 5, 6, 7 days at reasonable cost, not like the DHLs of the world, which was super expensive, which forced everyone to have some setup across countries. So I think that has really helped enable a lot more merchants become a part of the cross-border opportunity. I think interestingly, if you even look at the opportunity of cross-border, our MSMEs are better placed to win that because it's not that access is a challenge across developed world, right? It is about specific niche products which these MSMEs are able to bring, right? So I think both the dropshipping and actually what they have as an offering should drive cross-border for MSMEs in a big way over the coming few years. I think as a word of advice, I'll say first, it sounds very intuitive, but and I've heard it in Amazon multiple times, keep the customer at the heart of what you're trying to build, right? Like digitization, while it helps SMBs, it also has multiple people talking to the same consumer.
Yes.
So unless and until you have a very sharp insight and a value prop of who you are and what you stand for, and that can come only after talking to your customers. So focus on spending a lot of time meeting your customers, understanding their needs, what they need, and building around it. The second, embrace enablers. We as Indians are wired to do a lot of stuff ourselves. We do not want to take help. Everything I want to do myself, right? Try to look for partners. There are partners who will help you in your journey, talking from a context of e-commerce enablement, in stuff around payments, logistics, inventory, communication, so that you can focus on customer and keep customer at the heart of what you are building. And I think third, we talked about UPI enablement, we talked about the challenges. I think the ecosystem owes to the SMBs to build it in a manner which is easy to use.
Very correct.
A lot of solutions which you build, typically the ecosystem builds is enterprise backwards, not SMB backwards. UPI worked because it was easy to consume. You tell a Kirana to do a 3-day onboarding, UPI will not work. And hence, push people around you, whether it is marketplaces, enablers, to make it easy for you in your journey. So these are the 3 advices I'll have for everyone.
Thank you for sharing that. And if there's one thing that we've discussed so far is the common thread is optimism, and thank you for sharing your optimism about the space and how MSMEs can power our growth. And on that very optimistic note, we've come to the end of this conversation. I'd like to thank all of you for all your insights. Super grateful for making the time. And thank you, audience, for patiently listening. Thank you.
Thank you.